Cool. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Morning. Is it morning where you are? Evening? Afternoon? Not quite sure, but anyway, that's okay. You're here, which is really important, and we really appreciate it. So first of all, just to introduce myself, I'm going to be your host today. My name is Jo Bradshaw, and I work for Working in New Zealand Health. And I've worked for Working in for about 15 years, actually. And I'm a specialist healthcare recruitment manager. And so, look, the purpose of today is to talk about helping GPs moving to New Zealand. And so we really appreciate you coming on board to learn about what we're going to share. And the webinar is a bit of a collaboration, actually. And so not only have we got myself from Working in New Zealand Health, we've also got Ian Vickers, who is a representative from THINK Hauora. And we've also got Naseem Lalizara, and she is head of immigration for Working in Visas. So between us all, we are going to share lots of different information about moving to New Zealand, how we can help get you here, and what those opportunities are. The session is being recorded, so please don't worry if you miss anything. What we will do is we will share the recording with you after. And in addition, if you do have a YouTube channel yourself, then you will notice that there is the option to join the chat function. So please feel free to join that. We'll keep an eye on the questions on the chat function. May not get to all of you throughout. So if your question isn't answered, we do apologize, but we will follow up with that question afterwards. So what I will say is if you're not a GP, then this is not the webinar for you. We have a whole series of other webinars that you can join. So you won't miss out, but I would say that, yes, if you're not a GP, this is probably not going to all be relevant to you. Okay, so first of all, I will pass you over to Ian Vickers. He is a representative joining us today from THINK Hauora. Unfortunately, we were due to be joined by Dr. Nada Vata, and he's very upset not to be here, but he's very sadly had quite a bad mountain bike accident. So he is completely not unable to be here. So we do apologize about that. But there will be an opportunity to meet with him further down the track. But nonetheless, we've got wonderful Ian. So I'll pass you over to Ian for him just to say a few words about himself.
Thank you very much, Jo, and welcome everybody. My name's Ian Vickers. I'm the Network Development Manager for THINK Hauora. Now that's quite a long-winded title, but really what my role boils down to is I work with the GP teams to understand what they need to thrive and help them to help their communities. And so it's quite a simple role, but it's quite a busy role because THINK Hauora actually looks after all of the primary care services within the MidCentral region. So we've got a really diverse job, quite exciting. And if you can hear some banging in the background, that's a cat in the cupboard. So please do not adjust your set. And as you can tell from my accent, I'm actually not Kiwi born. I moved from the northeast of England about 25 years ago with my family. And we moved over here quite simply for lifestyle and career opportunities. And we haven't regretted a single moment of it. Since I got to New Zealand, I've been involved in a variety of roles, but they've all been in primary health, working with GP teams, understanding what they need to work best. And so from that regard, I'm really excited to be here today to listen to what Joe and Naseem have to say, and hopefully to share some pearls of wisdom myself.
Great. Thanks so much, Ian. So now I'll pass you over to Naseem, Head of Immigration Networking and Visas. And I'm sure a lot of you will know the critical nature of getting your visa in terms of being able to arrive in New Zealand. And we provide an excellent service. And so I'll pass you over to Naseem.
Thanks, Joe. Kia ora, everyone. My name's Naseem. I'm a licensed immigration advisor, and I've actually been with Working In for nearly 11 years. So during that time, obviously helped thousands of individuals, including lots of general practitioners who've come to New Zealand to take up work around this beautiful country. So I'm very much looking forward to speaking a little bit more about some of the policy and some of the visa considerations that you need to have. Obviously, we know that your skills are in demand in New Zealand, and the government wants you here, but we have the visa process that forms part of that journey here to New Zealand. So I'll touch base a little bit more on that detail down the line.
Thanks, Naseem, very much. And actually, I should also add, and that reminded me when Ian gave you his story, that I'm also from the UK myself, and I moved here 20 years ago. So I can certainly advocate for moving to New Zealand and enjoying a wonderful life here. So we're very well placed to not only help you with all the questions and answers that you might have, and helping you to secure a job as a GP and getting your visa. But what you will find is that we provide a very, very supportive role in getting you here, because we can provide you with those key facets of assisting you on your move to New Zealand. So I just want to say a little bit about working as a GP in New Zealand. So I've just put a little sort of snapshot slide together, which will pop up in a minute, I believe. That's it. So I just did a little snapshot for you just to kind of understand, I suppose. New Zealand is the same size as the UK, for example, but yet obviously our population is only 5 million. And so you can see here 5,500 GPs are working in New Zealand, and I think there's about 52,000 in the UK. So it's quite a different workforce. About 30% of our GPs here are qualified from overseas. But what we're really proud of in New Zealand is that we have a very diverse and highly integrated workforce in terms of primary health. It's very collaborative, and we take a very holistic approach as well. It's not just about healthcare, it is about health. The general practice in New Zealand, just to sort of provide you a little bit of information, are generally part of what are called the regional primary health organisations. Bit of jargon for you, or the PHOs. Now, THINK Hauora, where Ian is from, who's on today, he works for THINK Hauora is a PHO. So that just kind of explains to you how that fits in. And each PHO is overseen by a district health board. So a district health board, there's 20 district health boards in New Zealand, but kind of think of the district health boards as like the NHS. The other thing I'd like to add is that, whilst most GPs moving to New Zealand tend to start as a salaried GP, then there certainly are really exciting career opportunities in terms of being able to take over your own practice or buy into a practice at a later date. And so really, look, in a nutshell, you can enjoy a rewarding career as a GP in New Zealand. and enjoy that real family-friendly lifestyle at the same time. And so, look, we really encourage you to think about it, learn from today, and and hopefully move along on your journey in terms of moving to New Zealand. Cool. Okay. So, what I think the next best thing to talk about today is I will pass you over to Ian, and Ian is going to talk a little bit about THINK Hauora. Because so what we're talking about today is GP opportunities with THINK Hauora. We've got plenty of opportunities for GP. So we really want you to understand what the campaign is about and why you might be interested in working for them. So I'll pass you over to Ian now. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jo. And it's difficult to know where to start when talking about THINK Hauora, because I've worked with a lot of other primary care organisations throughout New Zealand in the last 25 years, and THINK Hauora is quite special. It's different, even though it's called a primary health organisation, which is a generic term throughout New Zealand. Many people in health leadership consider it to be the jewel of the crown, because it just focuses on getting stuff done and understanding what it takes to support the communities to be as healthy and well as possible. And that probably sounds like waffle words, and you've probably heard that before from other organizations. But the difference with THINK Hauora is it's got bold leadership and it just walks the talk. So, I could talk forever about the organization itself, but we're here today to talk about GP opportunities. And the cool thing about THINK Hauora is we look after our entire region. So that encompasses practices that we own ourselves, and we have a number of salaried GPs who work in there alongside nurse practitioners, nurses, healthcare assistants, quite integrated approach. But we also have like quite boutique, small family practices, just a few GPs, and we have large integrated family health centres looking after 20,000 patients with large teams that include social, health, and lifestyle professionals all working together to look at health needs and the wider determinants of health for their communities that they serve. So in terms of the makeup of the practices that we've got lots of different options, and we also have our ownership salaried model, and we have practices where people have the opportunity to move from salary into partnership into ownership. So everything's on the table from that perspective. And from a lifestyle perspective as well, we have a lot of options because we have a diverse region. We have practices that are by the beach. And then in coastal communities, we have rural practices that are also run the rural hospitals, and then we have your more routine urban practices within Palmerston North in a variety of shapes and sizes. What all of that means, from my perspective, is for people who are really keen to come over here and are interested in exploring what works best for them, we can help tailor a solution that will fit you and your family's needs and help you get the work and lifestyle balance, and just work with you to understand what fits best and what works best.
Totally. I was just going to actually say, Ian, it might be helpful for people just to see the map of THINK Hauora. Pardon? Oh, okay. Yes. So I guess Ian could just talk to the fact that, the diversity of the different practices, as he's just been mentioned, and actually probably not the best to see here, but this is the North Island of New Zealand. And so it's kind of what they call the MidCentral District of the North Island. But Ian, do you want to add anything there in terms of just sort of describing that area and the opportunities in there?
I think because of the collaborative way that we work our network, there's opportunities throughout those areas. You know, if somebody's interested in living by the beach, if somebody likes the idea of the rural dream, or if somebody likes a bit of urban living without the congestion that comes with a big city, all of those options are available within our network. So I don't think we've got the time to talk about specific opportunities, but I think the take-home message is throughout the district, there would be a way to tailor the experience that prospective candidates want, depending on what they and their families are looking for.
So really what you're saying there is that, you know, if you're a younger GP coming out on your own, or you're a family, or, you know, you're maybe an older sort of couple, is that within the THINK Hauora primary health organisation, then there are opportunities to suit, basically. So
Yep.
There's that flexibility to find something that fits with what you're looking for.
And the opportunity to maybe try a few different things if that's people want to sample what it's like being in a medium coastal community versus a city. You know, we have the network and the flexibility to tailor that experience.
Yeah. So great, lots of different great organisation places to be. So in terms of the region itself, I mean, I guess, why don't we talk about, at the moment, how many sort of opportunities are there for GPs? Like, what numbers are we kind of looking at the minute? And so say we just sort of look at the next couple of years, what would be the ideal scenario there?
Well, the numbers change all the time, but I think that we have quite a few vacancies. As everybody on this call will know, GPs are in demand throughout the world. We don't have enough of them, and our region is no different to anywhere else in the world from that perspective. So we would have opportunities throughout all of our areas. I would say that at the moment, the network might be able to accommodate up to 10 people because we've got some expansion opportunities. But as we move through, as we move along, those numbers will change. And of course, we've been affected, as we'll talk later, around GPs coming and going from New Zealand during COVID, and those are things that we'll talk about later in the thing. So that's partly why we have the numbers that we have at the moment, but that's also a great opportunity for people.
Great. Well, I think, should we have a little bit of a chat about some of the amazing things that you can do in the region and how accessible some of those things are to kind of bring into your everyday lifestyle? This is the exciting bit about what your life might look like, you know?
Yeah, and you know, I come from the northeast of England, so everywhere in New Zealand is good. But I've lived in Auckland, Hamilton, Tauranga, Rotorua, a few places, and I really do think the Mid-Central District is actually a hidden gem. And I'm pretty pleased about that in some ways, because otherwise it would be a lot busier than it is. But for me, we have like a great blend. We have a Palmerston North, which is a city of about 80,000 population. So it's big enough to have all of the infrastructure without being cluttered at all. It's not a very dense city, so it's easy to commute, and it's easy to get everything that you'd expect from a city without the downsides. But outside of the city, you have quite a unique blend within New Zealand of coastal communities. Within half an hour, you've got 3 really nice beaches, provide a variety of opportunities, fishing, water sports, just walking or driving on the beach. You've got some world-class mountain bike tracks. You've also got great hiking in the mountains, and you've just got some really cool rural communities. So that's within our district itself. But when you actually look at the location of the district, Joe mentioned earlier that we're in the mid-central area. Now, what that means is actually we're really close to a lot of other cool stuff. I think it's about two hours or maybe even a little bit less to the ski fields, the biggest ski fields in the Southern Hemisphere. We're also 2 hours or less to our capital, Wellington. And we're also only a few hours to the East Coast and the Hawke's Bay area and Martinborough area with all of its vineyards and, cat alert, with all of its vineyards and kind of Art Deco aspects over there. So we're in the center of it. We're in the mix, if you like. We've got good stuff in our region, but we've got also good stuff around. And there's nowhere else in New Zealand that has that combination of access to all of these other areas with a blend of infrastructure and options in the actual district itself. So I love it. I really do love it.
I think, look, that's great. And I think that actually one of the big things, well, three things actually that I'm thinking about is, if you want to get rid of a commute, know, MidCentral District is the place to be, but also it's very safe and it's got a much lower cost of living than anywhere else in New Zealand. So if you're looking to sell up and move to New Zealand, buy a house, then it's a really, really good option as a place to be. And not just that, thinking about partners. So you're a GP bringing your partner to New Zealand, then there's some good, really strong other key employment sectors, such as distribution and logistics, government agencies, IT, manufacturing, and we've also got a leading tertiary educational facility, which is Massey University as well in the region. So it's got everything, and it's close to Wellington, the capital, as well, if you wanted to take a trip over to Wellington. So I think we've done a good job of telling you a little bit about the region. So hopefully that gives you a bit more of an insight. What I'm going to do now is talk a little bit about getting prepared. What do you need to do? We've talked about THINK Hauora and the great opportunities there, what sort of organization it is. We've talked about the region. So let's have a bit of a chat about getting prepared. So there's two key things here. One of them is getting your medical council registration, and then the other is visas. So first of all, let's talk about, yes, thank you. So first of all, let's talk about your medical council registration. If you haven't already looked at this and you go to the Medical Council of New Zealand website, it might feel like a bit of a minefield, but please do know that we're here to help and we're here to guide you. There is a self-assessment tool on the Medical Council website, and there's a pathway for overseas qualified doctors. And so I've just put some key pointers here on this slide, and I think what we'll do is we'll just keep this slide up and I'll run through these. But I just wanted to keep it as simple as possible, because what we can do is arrange for one-on-one consultations so that I can talk to, and THINK Hauora can talk to individuals and get a bit deeper into seeing your situation and how we can help. So essentially in New Zealand, Doctors are registered within one or more scopes of practice. So rather than needing a particular type of registration, it's called a scope of practice. And there's 3 types of scope of practice. You've got general, vocational, and special purpose. Now, your special purpose is generally if you're coming for a specific project for a fixed term. Vocational tends to be the registration that GPs go for. And vocational registration is a form of permanent specialist registration, which allows you to work independently in New Zealand. So if you've trained and qualified, though, outside of New Zealand, first of all, you need to apply for a provisional vocational registration. So there'll be a period of time in which you undergo supervision until you become completely familiar with the New Zealand system and the standard of practice. After you've done that, then you will be able to apply for your full vocational registration. There's a couple of other things that I really want to make note of here. One of them is if you're from a country where English isn't a first language, then you will need to pass an English language test. The most common one is called IELTS, but you need to pass that to the satisfactory standard to be even able to submit your application. So that is a priority. The other thing is bearing in mind that New Zealand has a list of what's called comparable health systems, health system countries. So countries where the training and the experience compares to, and the health system compares to what you have in New Zealand. So people from those countries are more likely to gain registration, or you might have moved to live in one of those countries, in which so that gives you the option as well. So that kind of, I think that's probably enough on registration, otherwise it just gets a little bit too dry. But I think that gives you just enough to kind of be thinking about it. And it can take about 3 to 6 months. So if you're serious about moving, then it is a good thing to get started on. A lot of paperwork to pull together, etc. So I would highly recommend that you get onto that straight away. And I just see there's a question here from Fatima, thank you. How long are you required to work under supervision? It's generally about 12 months. Ian, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the registration side of things.
No, I think that's a good rule of thumb. I think 12 months. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good. Okay, well, that covers registration. I mean, we're here for about 45 minutes. So, you know, I mean, that's half an hour gone already. Time goes very quickly. And, you know, what we don't want to do today is give you too much information. We really just want to whet your appetite in thinking about it and showing you what the opportunities are. But the next really important aspect of moving is immigration. So who can migrate to New Zealand? What is the process? What do you need to do? What are the requirements? Well, look, we're very lucky that we've got an in-house visa team working in visas, and so we work very closely. And so as well as securing your job and working with THINK Hauora, we will also do your visa, which means that we can really provide this seamless process to getting you here, because we cover all those aspects. And so yeah, please, I'll pass you over to Naseem, and she will now talk you through immigration and visas and the sort of requirements and the options and border closure.
Thanks, Jo. So hello again, everyone. So the slide that you just saw up was the visa team. Obviously, there's a lot of us. because you know, the migration process can take time, and you know, we want to make sure that, you know, we're working with our clients to get them here as quickly and smoothly as possible. I probably should have confirmed that, like Ian and Joe, I myself did not grow up in New Zealand. I grew up in Australia and was smart enough to marry a Kiwi and move here 12 years ago. So also, like a lot of our visa team, those are the team that aren't born and bred Kiwis, have, you know, lived and worked somewhere else, so they understand the process of migration and what's involved. And we also have, all of our Kiwis have also been expats and gone through the process somewhere else as well. So we have the understanding of what goes into migrating, that there is so many steps. And so because we understand that, we're able to guide you through that process. So, just to confirm, that's the visa team is quite a large team. We do thousands of visas per year, and we work with professionals like yourselves, helping make sure that that process is as smooth as possible for you and your family, while also working with, you know, people like Joe and employers like THINK Hauora to make sure that everyone's on the same page and everything's moving through as seamlessly as possible. We do appreciate that obviously a migration journey is on top of your day-to-day. You've got jobs, you've got families, and so that's why we're here to help with that process. So the first thing that Joe's referred to is getting your registration underway, which is key, because you can't apply for a visa in New Zealand unless you're able to you have all the bits in place to allow you to accept the job based that you've been offered, that you've applied for that visa on. So the New Zealand government won't give you a visa to come and work as a GP if you're not allowed to work as a GP, because that would obviously have some legal ramifications of you practicing in New Zealand. So there's a few things that we need to work through to make sure that we're all working towards the same outcome. And part of that is having a look at your specific situation and working out which visa you can specifically apply for, what other considerations we need to have. And so that includes not just your visa options, but also that of your family. So it's really, really important that you and your family understand, you know, what you will be able to do when you arrive, and then also into the future. And so that leads on to the other point that I can see that's up on the screen with regards to the visa pathways. So we have an interesting situation where, because of COVID, the norm has shifted slightly, but for people like yourselves, the door is still open and the borders somewhat do not apply. So the normal process is that you would apply for a job, we'd meet all the requirements, and we would apply for a temporary visa, normally because they are faster to obtain, and you and your family can come and live and work in New Zealand sooner while we prepare a residency application. Because of COVID, at the moment, we apply for something called a border exemption, and that allows you and your family to enter New Zealand now and again start living and working in New Zealand. So what normally happens is that yourself as the principal applicant will have a visa that specifies your employer, your location, and your position. And then your family would get secondary visas that are all tied to yours based on their relationship with you. So your partner or your spouse would be issued with an open work visa, and your children, depending on their age, would either get a student visa or a visitor visa. So domestic student visas allow children to attend public school for free. And so effectively, the government wants it that you have the ability to come and settle and contribute to the country and join in with everybody else in normal day-to-day life in New Zealand. One thing I'd like to point out is, depending on how keen you are to get to New Zealand soon, and if you do start that registration process immediately, at the moment we have an unusual situation with the border exemptions process and a recent announcement from government that should you enter before July next year on a critical purpose visitor visa, we can convert that to a residency visa faster than we would normally, because the Minister of Immigration's just sort of announced a one-off, almost like a lottery visa. So it's just an additional extra exciting opportunity at the moment, but it is a limited time only before we move to the normal process of, you know, your temporary visas and then your residency application for you and your family. So as you've seen from all the pictures that were up on the screen earlier, New Zealand is absolutely beautiful. I'm sure Ian and Joe have also visited a lot of the locations that were up on the screen. And so I recommend that you do, if you haven't already, try to start your registration process as quickly as possible, because that will allow us to move the rest of the visa and the job process further along more quickly, allowing you to come and join us in beautiful Aotearoa. So I think that's a good summary of the current visa situation. But yeah, registration and a chat with Joe, and following that, being able to determine specifically the visa options relevant to you and your family so you can plan accordingly. Well, Joe, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I think what we're saying as well, you know, it's a step-by-step process and we guide you every step of the way. And so, you know, you don't need to kind of take it all in or understand all of it. It's, you know, the step first is to do an eligibility assessment to make sure you and your family are all eligible to move to New Zealand. That's a really important assessment. From there, we can then understand, you know, make sure that there's going to be no hurdles down the track, which may potentially cause problems. And also, once we've done that assessment, we are able to put together a personal report for you, which will give you your visa options and what that best pathway is for you. So you're very clear from the beginning how that all pans out. So we do totally recommend that you do that. Now, Naseem, I just saw a question, and we have got a few more minutes, and I thought this was a really good question that other people might be interested in. Lady Fatima said, do family visa options extend to parents if they are dependents or just immediate family? Would you mind just answering that?
Sure. So under the temporary instructions and the residence instructions, the family unit is considered the parents and the children, so not grandparents. So there are visa options for grandparents in order to be able to come and live in New Zealand, but they need to be assessed under separate instructions, and they can't be included as the dependent of you as the worker, so to speak. So they can be eligible for visas, but they don't meet the New Zealand definition of dependent for immigration instructions.
Sure. Okay, cool. Thank you, Naseem, for clarifying that. So look, we've covered pretty much, I think, all we can really cover today. The next, what we'll do is I'll just go around and just see if Ian wants to add anything else. So I'll just pass you over to Ian just to see if he's got any final words, and then we'll talk about what is going to happen next.
Thank you, Joe. Well, firstly, thank you for organising this. I found it informative and enjoyable. And just to let people know, we THINK Hauora decided to partner with Working In on this process because we thought that they did things differently and could add real value to supporting GPs to come over here. So if you are interested, I really do encourage you to take the next step and book a one-on-one appointment with Joe. And then as that progresses, then we'd be able to connect you with Nada, our medical director, and also other people on the ground working in New Zealand. But the first step is really just to start exploring the options with Joe. So really encourage you to dive in.
Thanks, Ian. And Nassim, did you want to say anything else before I wrap up?
I was just going to say that if you are really keen, it is important to find out what that migration journey might look like for you, because that can then further inform, how quickly you might move with moving to New Zealand or accepting an offer. I did see questions about age. There is no age limit on a work visa, but there is age limits with regards to residency. It's normally 56 years of age. So the sooner you start the process, generally the better.
Cool. Thank you so much, Nassim. Well, look, I hope you found that session useful. As I say, it's not going to give you everything, but hopefully it's whet your appetite. With regards to the next step, what we would like to do is get to know you on a one-on-one basis, so that we can really understand your individual circumstances and your experience. And so what we will do is we're going to send you a link, or there's a link coming up, I believe, which will allow you to book or contact us to say that you want to have a one-on-one consultation. And then from there, we'll organise with your diary and my diary, having a one-on-one session just to get a bit deeper on you individually. And then from there, once we've done that, then the best thing to do would be to have an eligibility assessment with the visa team. And also then what we will do is we'll arrange a time for you to meet with Dr. Nada Fatah, who obviously, unfortunately, wasn't able to be with us today. So definitely I advise the next step is to book send us through the link that you're interested in one-on-one consultation, and we will be in touch to make sure that we make a time with you as soon as possible. And that's it from me. And well, all I can say is thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate you taking time out of your day. We know how busy everyone is. And we do hope that you found the webinar really helpful, and hopefully that it's made you feel inspired and excited about moving to New Zealand. Because what I will say is you should be. So thank you so much, everybody. Goodbye.